So this is RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, and they're going to tell us why they left the Democratic Party.
Speaking of fighting, Charlie Kirk has described this group of individuals that have now come together to support Donald Trump, which is, I think Avengers is a really good way to describe them. You all have superpowers. You're all uniquely talented. It's truly impressive. Why do you think that so many unique individuals, of course, including many that have been Democrats, both of you are those people? Why have all of you come to support Donald Trump?
You know, pretty simply, we could go into, the story about why I left the Democrat Party, but over 20 years ago when I joined the Democrat Party, it was once that big open tent party that celebrated free speech, that stood up and defended civil liberties and civil rights. It was a party that welcomed people from all different backgrounds and recognized we can have agreements and disagreements on issues, but as we come together around our core principles in the Constitution and fighting for working people across our country, defending free speech, standing up for peace and prosperity for all Americans, those were the core ideals. But you fast forward to where we are today, and the Democrat Party, unfortunately, is completely unrecognizable. And so when we look at, speaking for myself, why I've endorsed President Trump in this election and why I will do everything I can over these next 44 days to encourage others to vote for Donald Trump, because really when we look at what is at stake, it is nothing short of our ability as Americans, regardless of political affiliation, to truly live and thrive in a free, peaceful, and prosperous nation.
She is absolutely right. It's weird how the Democratic Party has changed. And it seems like it happened over the Trump era presidency, that they completely flipped scripts with the Republicans. Like, a lot of their issues are now on the opposite side. It's really weird to see that. In fact, AOC just came out the other day where she was talking about how we needed to have something in place to limit free speech. And people are backing her for that. People are actually getting on board, like, yeah, we need to stop the misinformation and crack down. I think specifically she was talking about platforms like X, which just blows my mind. Like, you are supposed to be the free speech people, but yet you want to actually censor people. That's insane. It's so crazy.
And I know in our conversation we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but when we recognize that that is what is at stake, we also then must recognize that when we compare and contrast the record of Donald Trump as president, and we compare that to Kamala Harris's record as vice president, we see a record of success under Donald Trump when it comes to freedom, peace, and prosperity. And we see a record of failure when it comes to Vice President Kamala Harris, when it comes to tyranny, war, and economic hardship. In this election, the choice is very clear. And it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree on some issues with President Trump. This is not about personalities. This is nothing short of our future and our freedom on the line. And President Trump is our best hope to defend that freedom, to defend our future, to walk us back from the brink of World War III and nuclear war so that we can live out that promise that the founders of our country had for every single one of us as Americans.
So I want to bring up the video actually where she's talking about that. 'Cause I didn't watch the video, I read the article.
I do think that
sometimes stuff like that, gets misconstrued. Maybe Fox News picks it up and it's actually the wrong information. So let's actually watch it and see what really she said here. Just to be sure, we got to fact check. So here she is. Let's see what she has to say a little bit.
Members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're...
Yep, there she is. So it wasn't taken out of context. There she is. She's talking about censoring people, which just blows my mind. Like, that's not a Democratic policy. Like, they've never been for that. That hasn't been. It's not an American way at all. I don't get it. Good, it was on your end. I thought my phone was spontaneously playing AOC's noise. No, I was trying to find the video just to fact check it. But yeah, that's her there. She is literally talking about censoring Americans. Like, that's a thing. I never would have thought that would be a thing. No American would want that. Like, what? It blows my mind. Like, really, like, I can't even comprehend it, because when you're growing up, you're taught, like, we're Americans and we have freedom of the press and you have your First Amendment right and we love all this stuff. And now you have people actually coming out talking about wanting to limit the things that you can say.
You know, I followed the same evolution. She got awake a little faster than I did. And I would add Elon Musk and so many other people to this list.
Do you mind, Bobby? How many former Democrats or independents, libertarians we got here in the room tonight? Awesome.
That's me. I voted Democrat before, voted for Obama, but I can't get behind a party that wants to censor me.
Thank you. So you know what we're talking about.
In the Democratic Party that we were raised in, the Democratic Party of John Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy doesn't exist anymore. The Democratic Party that I grew up in was the party of peace. It was against war. My father died running against the Vietnam War. My uncle spent 1,000 days in office fighting against his military-industrial complex, his intelligence apparatus to keep our country out of war. It was the party of constitutional rights, of civil rights, including, especially, beginning with freedom of speech. It's now the party of censorship, and it's the party of war. And, you know, Kamala Harris said in this extraordinary speech, as she did in front of the Democratic Convention, which was filled with this pugnacious belligerence, this promise to make America the dominating military power in the world. And this is what's gotten us all into all the trouble. Before her, immediately before she went on, we had an ex-CIA director, Leon Panetta, speak at the Democratic Convention. This is not the Democratic Party that I grew up with. I would never do that. It was all kinds of military generals speaking at that convention. The Democratic Party in recent days, including Vice President Harris, has touted the endorsements of Dick Cheney and John.
Dick Cheney, one of the leads on the Iraq war, and she's taking that like it's a good endorsement. Nobody wants Dick Cheney as an endorsement.
Bolton and 225 other neocons who have endorsed Harris against Trump. Well, those people are the people who brought us the Patriot Act. They brought us the surveillance state. They brought us the censorship state. They brought us the torture regimen, the extraordinary renditions. They brought us the Iraq war, the biggest foreign policy debacle in the history of our country. They have not, Dick Cheney has not changed his minds about those policies. None of them have. They still believe that those were all good things for our country. So when they endorse the Democratic Party, it's not because they've changed. It's because the Democratic Party has changed radically. Our party was a party of tolerance, and today the Democratic Party is the party of hatred and division. And, you know, I have many, many old friends. Most of my old friends are Democrats. And I don't, I don't hate them because they're supporting Harris. I think they're wrong. I think it's a bad choice. But I don't hate them for it. I don't consider them deplorable. But they consider me deplorable for supporting President Trump. We ought to be able to talk with each other without hating each other. And
unless we feel the need to spread lies that incite violence against an entire community of people, I think we will be okay. In reference to what? Her misinformation speech, like censoring people? I don't know, man. I'm just not for any kind of censorship. I think if you're looking at America as a whole and you're talking about inciting violence against one community, most of us don't want that. And the best way to combat that is to have that kind of dumbass speech out there and have a lot of people go, no, actually, you're an idiot, and shut them down immediately. Because those people need to learn. We're kind of creating an environment where those people never get to learn that their ideas are stupid.
Democratic Party prided itself on being able to win debates and to be able to have conversations with journalists and enunciate a vision and defend their records. And now we have a Democratic Party candidate who won't go to unscripted interviews, who cannot explain her policies. And, I like what Tulsi said about, if you want to know the difference between the Democratic Party and the MAGA movement, look at the state of California, the state that I live in now. This is a state that has the highest homeless rate. Half the homeless people in our country live in California. To me, the greatest city in our country was San Francisco, and today it's a ruin. It is the state with the worst.
That is what she was referring to? Yeah, she was okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, she was referring to silencing those people, but I don't think silencing those people, even though they're wrong, works. I think that just creates a little vacuum down there of people who hate an entire community. Maybe say they're racist or whatever. They hate gay people. Now you got a little community down there because they've been silenced. So they got their own little place that they can go to. And then it grows from there. Where if those people were out in the open and being told that, no, you're dumb, this is why you're dumb, and learning from other people, having different kind of conversations, being introduced to those people who might, they might relate to more, that kind of thing, like letting them grow as people instead of just trying to silence people, because that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. You're going to make that little group down there grow even more. That's how hatred just grows. So I Googled Democrats versus Cheney, and the top 4 results were the exact same article, definitely not forcing a narrative. That doesn't surprise me.
Second worst education. It was the top education system in the country. Now it's 49th out of 50th. There's 1 million people a year in California who are leaving the state. They have run out of U-Haul trucks. And Kamala Harris was instrumental in creating that situation. So the Democratic Party that I grew up with was the party that defended the most vulnerable people in this country. And today it's the party it's the party of the rich, the super rich. It was the party of the firefighters, the cops, of labor. We had this year this extraordinary inversion happening where you had Sean O'Brien, who I talked to a few minutes ago, who's the head of the Teamsters Union, and he told me to send his love to Donald Trump. And while they had military leaders and CIA leaders talking at the Democratic convention, you had Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters Union, talking at the Republican convention. And the Democratic Party, when I was a kid, the Democratic Party owned very little money. It had usually the contributions were a half to a third of what the Republicans raised in presidential races. Today, it's a complete inversion. In 2020, roughly 50% of this people in this country voted for Democrats, according to what we're told, and roughly 50% voted for the Republicans. But the 50% who voted Democrat owned 70% of the wealth in this country. The 50% who voted Republican owned 30% of the wealth. And if you look at the campaign finance, I was looking at the reports for both parties on the way over here tonight, on the way on my drive from Phoenix. And the Democrats have outraised the Republicans 2-1 or 3-1 in this race. And it's not because of enthusiasm. We got much bigger crowds than they do. We have much more intensity than they do. There are none of the surrogates for Vice President Harris who can put together a crowd like this, a standing room only crowd with 3,000 RSVPs. We got to this event. They can't do that. What they have is money. And this is the opposite. This has become the party of the working class, of the working poor, of Main Street, of small business people. Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, who is her campaign manager or finance director.
Yeah, they always have to throw in that little snide remark about, "Oh, my crowds are so much bigger. They have to get into this pissing match." Like, who cares?
Has taken leave of being the general counsel for Uber, one of the most anti-union, anti-labor organizations in this country. They are on the side of big tech and the intelligence agencies, because they are all linked. And I'm scared of those people running our country. That terrifies me. We were the party of peace. Now the Democratic Party is the party of war. They're the party that gave us Ukraine. They're the party now that is threatening to put missiles into Russia, to the Kremlin, to mainland Russia, and start World War.
I'm wondering if those long-range missiles into Russia are going to be authorized by the U.S. That's something I'm kind of sitting back, watching those White House press briefings to see if that's actually going to be a thing, because that's going to flip the scenario really quick, especially with the amount of money that we just saw that the U.S. is investing into the Ukrainian military. It's not a good look.
World War III, my uncle did everything in his power to avert a conflict with Russia, including doing something nobody ever did, but to have direct contact with Khrushchev. They exchanged 26 personal letters. My uncle put a hotline in the White House so he could talk directly to Khrushchev. In the White House today, nobody's talking to Putin. Nobody's talking to the Russians. Nobody's listening to what they're saying about the red lines that we are creating. And it's really, they brought us now to the brink of nuclear war. We're closer to nuclear war than any time that we've been since 1962. And it's terrifying for me, the leadership in the White House. If there is a nuclear exchange, 5 billion people will die. A full-blown nuclear exchange with Russia and China would be over. The World War III would be over in 73 minutes, and 5 billion people around the world would die. And, all of the worries about climate and everything else are dwarfed by the worries of nuclear war. And they have us right at the brink. So, it's a different party, and we've had this extraordinary inversion now, and this is now the party of the values that I cherish.
There you have it.